is if you pay, say, $2,500 to get the trust in place, and then when you die, it ends up saving your family $200,000 worth of unnecessary taxes and probate fees, was it worth paying the $2,500? We're talking about the basics today of estate planning and some of the very basic differences between a will and a trust. Sadly, a lot of people think that wills and trusts are the same thing, and they do the same thing. But here's something that's really interesting. Just putting up will and trust up here, how much do you know about the difference between a will and a trust? Could you give me 5 reasons why they're different? 2 reasons why they're different? 3 reasons why they're different? They both have very distinct things that they do, but one thing an attorney, it's not really a joke, but it's just something that I heard an attorney said. He said, well, you know why it's called a will, right? And I said, no. And he says, well, it's called a will because if you die and the only thing you have is a will, it will go through probate. So a lot of time we listen to like a radio show or something that says, you know, you don't need to pay an attorney to do a will. You can just do it on your own. And is that true? Well, yeah, it's totally true. But I always question, you know, I could fix my car myself too. And am I saying, recommending, telling you you have to go and talk to an attorney? No, but you don't have to talk to a mechanic either. You don't have to have a professional put in your sprinklers. You don't have to have, you know, whatever. You could do your own roof, right? But the thing is, for me, here's the way I think about it. If I do it myself, I have to take the time to do it, and whatever time I dedicate to doing that, I'm not making money doing what makes me money, so I'm kind of losing money that way. Then I'm spending money doing whatever it is I'm doing, you know, to save money, but I spend a little bit. Then if I do it wrong, then that time is gone, and then I have to pay someone to do it right anyway. So, but that's just me. But then there's those, you know, the DIYers, the do-it-yourselfers that just want to do it themselves. And are there templates online you could do a will by yourself? Yes. Are there, you know, special websites that, you know, help you get it done? Absolutely. It's a preference thing. So I'm just letting you know, because this is the Impact School of Money, is teaching that that's a possibility, right? So you can do a will. And a will can be done very simply, okay? A trust is typically a little bit more involved, okay? So let's just talk about the basics, okay? The basics of a will are going to be, so a will is a legal, like a forcible, what's the word? A legally enforceable document, there we go, stating how you want your affairs to be handled when you die. So a trust is both stating what we want to have happen when we're alive and when we pass away. A will is only when we die. Okay? Another thing about a will is it will designate, if we have minor children at home, what happens to the children. If we don't have a will in place, like I said, the state that we live in does have a plan in place that isn't as favorable as we would like, and sometimes well, not sometimes, the language, as I was talking to an attorney the other day, said that it says that any interested party can come in and kind of contest why they should be the guardian of children. Okay, and so it may end up being someone that we don't want. Okay, another thing is what happens to we can state how we would like our affairs to be handled, and that's going to be, you know, money, property, etc. That we can state how we want it to be, but again, it's not necessarily going to be as binding or as specific as what a trust is. Okay? And so a will is part of an estate plan, but it's not the whole thing. Okay? So that's just the basics, and we'll get into it in future lessons because we want to cover the basics of a trust as well. Okay, so this is intentions, what we would like to have happen when we die, but as the attorney said, if we only have a will or we have something written out on a piece of paper, chances are very high that it will go through probate. Okay, what about a trust? Okay, a trust, the way that I like to think of a trust is a person, another person that will never die. So we can give, as a trust, a document, a set of instructions, how to follow these instructions, what we want them to do with all of our assets, etc., both when we're alive and when we die. And so the person that sets up the trust, and we'll talk about all the different words and grantors and trustees and all that in future lessons, but the basics are, here's all the stuff, property, stories, assets, life legacy, stuff we want to do. If we own it, if we own all the stuff, then it's subject to lawsuits and all of that stuff. But if we transfer the ownership to the trust, now what happens is we don't own the stuff directly. We control the trust. The trust is in charge of the stuff. So we can give a person called the trustee a set of instructions that says, this is what is to happen. If I were to get sick, this is what's supposed to happen with the stuff. If I die, here's what's supposed to happen with the stuff. If this happens with one of my kids, here's what happens with the stuff. If instead of this happening, this happens with one of my kids, here's what is to be done with the stuff. Right? And so there's a couple of types of trusts. One is an irrevocable trust, and one is revocable. So the person that creates the trust is going to decide, is this going to be revocable or irrevocable? Revocable meaning we can make changes. Irrevocable meaning we can't make any changes. The trustee can't make any changes. And in either, if any are to be changed, that it takes the consensus or the combined deciding of the people who made the trust, if that's how it was set up. Sometimes it can be, each one acting independently, or it has to be majority, or it has to be all in agreement, right? There's all different types, and there are a lot of different types of trusts, too. So obviously, because I'm not an estate planning attorney, I'm just going to be going over the basics of a trust, and then in future lessons, we're actually going to have an attorney, an estate planning attorney, that will come and explain a little bit more, a little bit more about the importance of wills and trusts and why and when and all those different things. But for the sake of this lesson and future lessons, what I'll be going over are just kind of the basics, difference between a will and a trust. The very easiest thing in my mind to think is a will, because it has less letters in it, is simpler and does less things. A trust has more letters in it. It can be more complex. It will cost more money to do. There are a lot more things it can do. There's a lot more different types of trusts than, there are wills. You've got, a will, pour-over will. There's not, a will's a will. But then there's a lot of different trusts that basically act as like that entity, person that we give instructions to, that won't ever die. But then there's special taxation when it comes to trusts. There's different tax codes that have been passed for specific types of trusts. But just knowing the differences between a will and a trust. In my opinion, again, this is not telling anybody what to do or giving specific advice, but in my opinion, once somebody is married, has children and owns a home or a business, having a trust, in my opinion, is something that someone should probably do. It would be very wise to do so. And a lot of the time, the reason why people don't is that they think it's going to be too expensive. And that's not always the case, depending on what you do. As detailed as my trust was, it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't crazy expensive either. But the question is if you pay, say, $2,500 to get the trust in place, and then when you die, it ends up saving your family $200,000 worth of unnecessary taxes and probate fees, was it worth paying the $2,500? I guess that's up to you. So thank you for joining us at the Impact School of Money today, and we look forward to future lessons. And hey, share this with somebody.